Either you go upstairs with him tonight or clean out your desk tomorrow. Those words hit me like a physical blow when Lauren repeated them to me, her voice cracking as tears streamed down her face. I'd never seen my wife like this, shaking uncontrollably, mascara running down her cheeks, the collar of her silk blouse torn slightly at the shoulder. It was 2:17 a.m. She'd just stumbled through our front door, reeking of expensive whiskey that I knew she hadn't drunk voluntarily. "He cornered me in the elevator, Jack," she whispered, collapsing into my arms. Pushed me against the wall and said no one says no to Stephen Merrill. Not if they want to keep selling houses in this town. I felt something dark and primitive rise in my chest, a murderous rage I'd never experienced before. My hands clenched into fists so tight my knuckles went white. "I'll kill him," I said, and I meant it. Lauren grabbed my wrists, her eyes suddenly clear despite her distress. "No, that's exactly what he wants. He's baiting us to do something stupid." She was right, she always was. My Lauren, brilliant, beautiful, and tougher than anyone knew, including the man who had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Let me back up. My wife Lauren wasn't just any real estate agent. In 5 short years, she'd become a rising star in the luxury market, selling multi-million-dollar properties to tech executives and foreign investors. She'd built her reputation the hard way, through honesty, intelligence, and genuine care for her clients' needs. No shortcuts, no compromises. 3 months ago, she'd been headhunted by Prestige Properties, the most exclusive real estate firm in the city. The commission structure was better, the listings were bigger, and the opportunity to learn from the legendary Stephen Merrill seemed like a dream come true. Stephen was the king of luxury real estate in our region. His face was plastered across billboards and bus benches throughout the wealthiest neighborhoods. "I don't sell houses, I sell lifestyles," was his tagline. His Instagram showed him next to celebrities stepping off private jets, always in bespoke suits that probably cost more than my monthly salary. "He closes over $300 million in sales every year," Lauren had told me excitedly after her interview. Do you know what I could learn from someone like that? I'd been thrilled for her. We'd celebrated with champagne, made love with the kind of exhilarating energy that comes from life taking a beautiful turn. Now, just 12 weeks later, I was washing the smell of that man's cologne off my wife's skin as she sobbed in our shower. "Tell me everything," I said once she had calmed down enough to speak coherently. We sat at our kitchen island, Lauren in her bathrobe, hands wrapped around a mug of tea, her wedding ring clinking softly against the ceramic. "The Henderson deal closed today," she began. $18.5 million for the lake house. Stephen was ecstatic. It was all cash, no contingencies. He insisted on taking the team out to celebrate at Onyx. Onyx was the kind of exclusive club where they don't list prices on the menu, and private rooms upstairs were rumored to host everything from high-stakes poker games to more intimate encounters. Everything was fine at first. The whole team was there: Jim, Melissa, Ryan, the marketing staff. We were drinking champagne. Stephen was telling stories about his early days in real estate. Around 11, people started heading home. She took a sip of tea, her hand still trembling slightly. Stephen insisted I stay, said he wanted to discuss my future at the firm, that he had big plans for me. I didn't think anything of it. He'd been a perfect gentleman since I started. Her voice hardened. Then everyone else was gone. He ordered a bottle of whiskey and told the server not to come back unless he called. That's when I started feeling uncomfortable. He shifted to sit next to me in the booth, put his hand on my knee, started talking about a potential client, supposedly Saudi royalty, looking for a $30 million property off market. "I want you to handle it personally," he said, "but these clients expect a certain level of service, the kind of service that builds loyalty." I felt sick as she continued. I played dumb at first, asked him to clarify what he meant by service. He laughed like I was being cute. "Lauren," he said, "you're a beautiful woman. You must know the effect you have. Some clients need to feel special, personally attended to. I need to know you're a team player." She set down her mug. I stood up to leave, told him I needed to use the restroom. He grabbed my wrist, hard enough to bruise. "Don't play games," he said. "I've invested in you. Now it's time for you to invest in the relationship." My blood boiled as she described how he'd followed her to the hallway outside the bathrooms, pinned her against the wall, whispered that she should join him upstairs where they kept private suites. That's when he gave me the ultimatum: sleep with this client or lose my job. When I pushed him away, he grabbed my blouse. She touched the torn fabric. I got into a taxi and came straight home. The rage I felt was overwhelming, but Lauren's eyes held something beyond anger or fear. They showed determination. "We're going to destroy him," she said with quiet intensity. "Not just stop him, destroy him." In that moment, something shifted between us. This wasn't just about defending my wife's honor or her job. This was about justice, about making sure Stephen Merrill never did this to another woman. "Where do we start?" I asked. Lauren's eyes gleamed with cold purpose. "We gather ammunition. Lots of it." The next morning, Lauren went to work as if nothing had happened. She wore a high-neck blouse to cover the bruise on her collarbone, applied extra concealer to the faint marks on her wrist, and walked into Prestige Properties with her head high. "Won't he expect you to be rattled?" I asked as she prepared to leave. "Counting on it," she replied. "Men like Stephen interpret fear as weakness and weakness as opportunity. Let him think I'm terrified but hiding it. It'll make him overconfident." I hated letting her go back into that environment, but we both knew an immediate confrontation would only result in her word against his. We needed to be smarter than that. While Lauren played her part at work, I began our intelligence operation. My job as an IT security consultant gave me skills that would prove invaluable. I wasn't going to hack into anything. That would be illegal and ultimately counterproductive. But I knew how to research thoroughly and connect digital dots. Step one was background research. I dug into every public record connected to Stephen Merrill: property records, court filings, corporate registrations, social media history, news archives. I created a timeline of his career, noting every partnership, every major sale, every award and controversy. Most telling were the employment records I could piece together. Prestige Properties had a suspiciously high turnover rate among female agents who worked directly with Stephen. Women would join, seem to thrive briefly, then disappear from the company's website and social media. The pattern was striking once you looked for it. Meanwhile, Lauren was keeping meticulous records of every interaction at work. Stephen's behavior the day after the incident was exactly as she'd predicted. He acted as if nothing had happened, but watched her with a predatory smugness, occasionally making comments just ambiguous enough to maintain plausible deniability. "I trust you've reconsidered our discussion about client services," he said casually as they passed in the hallway. "I'm still processing it," Lauren replied neutrally. He smiled. "Don't process too long. Opportunities like this don't wait." 3 days later, the retaliation began. It started small. Lauren's desk was relocated to a windowless corner far from the main floor. Her calls were mysteriously dropped. The assistant who had been assigned to help her suddenly became too busy to handle her paperwork. Then came the client interference. Lauren had been working with the Nakamura family on a $12 million property purchase for weeks. They were days away from making an offer when they suddenly went cold. No calls returned, no emails answered. When Lauren checked the internal CRM system, she found that the Nakamuras had been reassigned to another agent, with a note claiming they had specifically requested not to work with Lauren due to unprofessional conduct. "That's absolutely false," Lauren said when she confronted her manager, Jim Hancock. "I've had an excellent relationship with the Nakamuras. Something's not right." Jim looked uncomfortable. "Stephen mentioned you missed a scheduled showing with them last week. Said they were waiting at the property for over an hour." "That's impossible. I never had a showing scheduled. You can check my calendar." "Look, Lauren," Jim sighed, not meeting her eyes. "Stephen's our top producer. If he says there was an issue..." It was happening even faster than we'd anticipated. Stephen wasn't just hindering her. He was actively sabotaging her reputation, manufacturing failures that never occurred. That night, Lauren made a crucial decision. "I need to start recording everything," she said. "California's a two-party consent state for audio, but I can document every conversation immediately afterward in emails to myself. Timestamps will help establish the pattern." She also began reaching out to former Prestige Properties agents, women who had mysteriously departed over the years. Most didn't return her calls. A few responded but refused to talk. But on her 8th attempt, she struck gold. Vanessa Miller had worked at Prestige for 18 months before leaving 2 years earlier. She agreed to meet Lauren for coffee at a cafe far from the office. "I know why you're calling," Vanessa said as soon as they sat down. "It's Stephen, isn't it? He's targeting you now." The relief on Lauren's face was palpable. Finally, confirmation she wasn't alone. "How did you know?" Vanessa's laugh was bitter. "Because you're exactly his type. Attractive, ambitious, ethical. He likes breaking the ethical ones most of all. Makes him feel powerful." Over the next hour, Vanessa detailed her own experience, remarkably similar to Lauren's. The initial mentorship, the inappropriate advances, the ultimatum, the retaliation when she refused. "Why didn't you fight back?" Lauren asked. "I tried," Vanessa said quietly. "Went to HR, filed a formal complaint. 2 weeks later, I was fired for performance issues that never existed. They offered a small severance in exchange for signing an NDA. I was broke, scared, and believed Steven when he said I'd never work in real estate again if I made trouble." "Did you sign it? The NDA?" Vanessa nodded. "But I kept copies of everything. Emails, performance reviews, client feedback. All the documentation showing I was a top performer until I refused Steven's advances. I've been too afraid to use it, but..." She hesitated. If someone else were building a case, this was the break we needed. One voice could be dismissed. Two began to form a pattern. By the end of week 2, Lauren had connected with 3 more women with similar stories spanning the past decade. All had left real estate entirely after their experiences. All had documentation. None had been willing to stand alone. But together, their evidence painted a damning picture. While Lauren built this coalition, I focused on the client angle. The Nakamuras weren't the only clients who had suddenly disappeared from Lauren's portfolio. I managed to track down Thomas Ryu, a tech executive who had been working with Lauren on a vacation property purchase before mysteriously going silent. We met at a golf club where I'd booked a tea time, making it appear like a casual encounter rather than an intentional meeting. "Heard you were working with Prestige on a property purchase," I mentioned casually as we waited at the 10th hole. "My wife Lauren is with them." Thomas looked uncomfortable. "We decided to go in another direction." "Any particular reason?" "Lauren thought you had a great connection." He hesitated, then sighed. "Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but we were told some concerning things about your wife's professional practices. That she had been cutting corners on disclosures, possibly even manipulating comps to drive up prices." My shock was genuine. "Who told you this?" "Stephen Merrill called me personally, said he hated doing it, but as managing partner, he felt ethically obligated to intervene before we made a serious investment mistake." The scope of Stephen's sabotage was breathtaking. He wasn't just undermining Lauren within the company. He was actively defaming her to clients, making allegations that could potentially end her career or even lead to legal jeopardy. "Thomas," I said carefully, "would you be willing to put what Stephen told you in writing? Because I can assure you none of it is true, and we're building evidence of a systematic campaign of defamation." He looked alarmed. "I don't want to get involved in something messy. It's already messy, and you've been dragged into it without your knowledge. All I'm asking is that you document the truth, that Stephen made these specific allegations about my wife's professional conduct." After some persuasion, Thomas agreed to provide a written statement detailing exactly what Stephen had told him. Allegations that were demonstrably false and potentially actionable as defamation. By the end of the 3rd week, we had assembled a considerable dossier. 5 former agents with documented experiences of harassment and retaliation. 3 clients who had been fed false information about Lauren's professional conduct. Internal emails showing the sudden reassignment of Lauren's clients without cause. Documentation of Lauren's stellar performance before she rejected Stephen's advances. It was time to take action, but we needed to be strategic. "If we go to HR, they'll bury it," Lauren said. "Stephen owns Jim, and half the management team owe their positions to him." "What about the California Department of Real Estate?" I suggested. "Stephen's actions aren't just workplace harassment. They potentially violate the ethical standards required for his broker's license." Lauren's eyes lit up. "That's it. Hit him where it really hurts. His ability to legally conduct business." We contacted Melissa Jimenez, an attorney specializing in professional license defense and workplace harassment. After reviewing our evidence, she didn't mince words. "This is one of the strongest cases of systematic harassment and retaliation I've seen," she told us. "Most victims don't have this level of documentation, and the client defamation adds another serious dimension." She helped us file a formal complaint with the California Department of Real Estate, detailing Stephen's pattern of sexual harassment, professional retaliation, and false statements to clients that violated multiple sections of the Real Estate Code of Ethics. We expected the process to move slowly. What we didn't expect was Stephen's immediate counterattack. 3 days after the department notified Prestige Properties of the investigation, Lauren was called into Jim's office. Stephen was there, along with a woman from HR she'd never met before. "Lauren, we've discovered some extremely disturbing behavior," Jim began, not meeting her eyes. "An internal audit has revealed unauthorized access to confidential client information, communication with competitors about proprietary listings, and falsification of viewing records." Lauren remained completely calm. "That's interesting, considering I've been documenting every minute of my workday for the past 3 weeks, including screen recordings of all my system access. I'd be happy to provide those records to disprove these fabricated allegations." Stephen's face tightened. "We have digital evidence, Lauren. Time-stamped system logs." "Fascinating," Lauren replied. "I look forward to having my digital forensics expert husband examine those logs. I'm sure he'll find them completely legitimate and not at all backdated or falsified." I wish I could have seen Stephen's expression at that moment. According to Lauren, a flash of uncertainty crossed his face for the first time. "This is a serious matter," the HR representative interjected. "We're terminating your employment effective immediately. You'll be escorted to collect your personal belongings." Lauren stood. "I expected this. I've already documented that client files were removed from my access yesterday, conveniently after the Department of Real Estate notified you of their investigation. I'm sure they'll find that timing interesting as well." As security walked her out, Lauren held her head high. Several agents watched in confusion as she was escorted through the main floor. She made eye contact with each of them, calm and dignified in the face of humiliation. Stephen had overplayed his hand. Firing Lauren so immediately after a formal complaint was filed created a clear pattern of retaliation that strengthened our case considerably. Melissa called it a gift from a legal perspective. What followed was 3 weeks of intense activity. Lauren found herself suddenly unhireable at other local agencies. Stephen had clearly spread his poison throughout the tight-knit luxury real estate community. But instead of despairing, she used the time to build our case further. We created a secure website where former victims of Stephen's harassment could document their experiences anonymously. Melissa discreetly shared the link with former Prestige employees. Within days, we had 15 new accounts spanning nearly 15 years, a damning chronicle of predatory behavior and professional retaliation. Then came a breakthrough we hadn't anticipated. Ryan Martinez, a mail agent still employed at Prestige, reached out to Lauren privately. "I can't be seen talking to you," he said when they met at a coffee shop miles from the office. "But what's happening isn't right. I've watched Stephen do this to women for years and said nothing. I can't live with myself anymore." Ryan revealed that Stephen had a pattern of using the private rooms at Onyx for client meetings that were often just thinly veiled opportunities for coercion. He provided dates, names, and most crucially, confirmation that management was fully aware of Stephen's behavior. "Jim jokes about it," Ryan said disgustedly, "calls it Stephen's special client services program. They all know. They just don't care because he brings in so much money." With Ryan's testimony, we now had evidence not just of Stephen's individual misconduct, but of a systematic failure of management to address known sexual harassment, a much more serious issue from a regulatory perspective. The Department of Real Estate investigation accelerated. Investigators interviewed current and former employees, examined client complaints, and reviewed the internal records we'd provided. Stephen hired a high-powered attorney who filed motions to dismiss, claiming Lauren was a disgruntled ex-employee making false allegations. But the evidence was too substantial to ignore. 4 weeks after Lauren's termination, the department issued a preliminary finding. Sufficient evidence existed to pursue license revocation proceedings against Stephen Merrill for violations of professional ethics regulations. As a precautionary measure, they suspended his broker's license pending the outcome of a formal hearing. The suspension was devastating for Stephen. Without an active license, he couldn't legally participate in real estate transactions. No showings, no closings, no commissions. His income stream vanished overnight. Prestige Properties immediately placed him on unpaid leave, not out of ethical concern, but to distance themselves from the growing scandal. Jim issued a mealy-mouthed statement claiming the firm had no prior knowledge of any inappropriate behavior and was committed to maintaining the highest professional standards. Lauren watched these developments with grim satisfaction, but our work wasn't done. The suspension was temporary. We wanted permanent consequences. "We need to make sure his clients know exactly why he's been suspended," Lauren said, "not the sanitized version Prestige is putting out." This was where my IT skills proved particularly useful. I created a simple webpage detailing the department's findings, linking to the public records of the investigation. No exaggerations, no inflammatory language, just the documented facts of Stephen's professional misconduct and the resulting suspension. Then I implemented a targeted digital advertising campaign, ensuring that anyone searching for Stephen Merrill real estate or related terms would see our fact page at the top of their results. It was completely legal. We were simply promoting publicly available information. The effect was immediate and devastating. Clients began distancing themselves from Stephen and Prestige. Several withdrawn listings appeared on competitor websites within days. The firm's social media accounts were flooded with questions about the allegations. Stephen's carefully constructed reputation was collapsing in real time, but his personal downfall was just beginning. Caroline Merrill, Stephen's wife of 20 years, had apparently been unaware of her husband's predatory behavior. When the details became public, including his use of company resources to arrange private client meetings at Onyx, she filed for divorce. Court records revealed she was seeking sole ownership of their primary residence, control of their investment portfolio, and custody of their teenage children. The filing cited moral turpitude and irreparable damage to family reputation as grounds. Meanwhile, Lauren's professional resurrection began from an unexpected quarter. Diana Chen, owner of Elevation Realty, Prestige's main competitor, invited Lauren to lunch. "I've been watching how you've handled this situation," Diana said. "The grace, the strategic thinking, the refusal to be silenced. Those are exactly the qualities I want in my organization." She offered Lauren a senior position with a substantial signing bonus and better commission split than she'd had at Prestige. "Why would you take this risk?" Lauren asked. "Stephen still has allies in this industry." Diana's expression hardened. "Let's just say I have my own history with men like Stephen Merrill, and I believe in changing this industry, not just succeeding within its broken systems." Lauren accepted the offer, and something remarkable happened. She began to thrive. Free from Stephen's toxic influence, her natural talents flourished. Within 2 months, she'd brought in over $45 million in listings. Former clients who had been poisoned against her sought her out to apologize and resume their business relationships. The formal hearing before the Department of Real Estate was scheduled for 3 months after the initial suspension. As the date approached, Stephen's attorney reached out to Melissa about a potential settlement. "He's offering to surrender his license voluntarily for 2 years and pay a $50,000 fine if you'll withdraw the complaint," Melissa told us. "No admission of wrongdoing, no public hearing." "Absolutely not," Lauren said without hesitation. "This isn't about money or even my career anymore. It's about making sure he can never do this to another woman." The hearing proceeded as scheduled. It was a grueling 2-day process, with Lauren and 3 other women testifying about their experiences with Stephen. His attorney tried to paint them as confused or vindictive, but their testimonies were consistent, detailed, and compelling. Ryan Martinez's testimony proved particularly devastating. As a current Prestige employee with no personal grievance, his confirmation of management's knowledge and tacit approval of Stephen's behavior undermined the firm's denials completely. Stephen himself took the stand, portraying himself as a dedicated mentor to female agents whose actions had been misconstrued. But under cross-examination, he crumbled, contradicting himself repeatedly when confronted with the documented evidence. 2 weeks later, the department issued its ruling. Stephen Merrill's real estate license was permanently revoked for egregious and persistent violations of professional ethics. Prestige Properties was fined $250,000 to $50,000 for failure to address known instances of harassment in order to implement comprehensive anti-harassment training. The industry was stunned. Stephen had seemed untouchable, too wealthy, too connected, too essential to the luxury real estate ecosystem to face real consequences. His fall sent shockwaves through real estate circles nationwide. With his license revoked and his reputation destroyed, Stephen's carefully constructed world collapsed with stunning speed. The divorce drained his liquid assets. Former clients distanced themselves publicly. His social media accounts went dark. Then came a night I'll never forget. It was nearly midnight when our doorbell rang. I checked the security camera to see Stephen swaying on our front porch, clearly intoxicated, his designer clothes rumpled and stained. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Where is she?" he slurred. "I need to talk to Lauren." "It's midnight, Stephen. Go home." "You don't understand," he insisted, his bloodshot eyes unfocused. "I can fix this. I just need her to withdraw the complaint. Tell them it was all a misunderstanding." The department made their ruling. "It's over." his face contorted with rage and desperation. "Do you have any idea what you've done? I built this market. I made careers. 25 years of work. Gone." His voice broke. "My children won't speak to me. Caroline took everything. The bank is foreclosing on my investment properties." For a moment, I almost felt pity. Then I remembered Lauren's torn blouse, the bruises on her wrist, the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, wondering if she'd ever work in real estate again. "Responsibility is like real estate, Stephen," I said calmly. "It doesn't disappear. You own what you did." "Please," he begged, grabbing my arm. "I have money. Offshore accounts Caroline doesn't know about." "Name your price." I removed his hand. "Goodbye, Stephen." As I closed the door, he shouted, "She's nothing special. There are 100 women who would have done what I asked, who understood how this business really works." I watched through the window as he stumbled back to his car, no longer the luxury sedan from his promotional materials, but a modest rental. In that moment, I understood that his punishment wasn't just the loss of his license or money or reputation. It was the loss of the fiction he'd built around himself, that he was untouchable, that rules didn't apply to him, that women were commodities to be exploited. 6 months after Stephen's license revocation, Lauren made a decision that surprised me. With her success at Elevation and the reputation she'd built standing up to industry misconduct, she had accumulated enough capital and client loyalty to launch her own boutique agency. "Are you sure?" I asked. "It's a huge risk." She smiled with the confidence of a woman who had faced down her worst fears and emerged stronger. "Some risks are worth taking, and some examples need to be set." She called it Integrity Real Estate. The name was both a personal statement and a business strategy, positioning the firm as an ethical alternative in an industry known for cutthroat tactics and moral compromises. The grand opening made local business news. Without directly referencing the harassment case, reporters noted that Lauren had overcome significant professional obstacles and was redefining standards in luxury real estate. What none of the news coverage captured was the quiet revolution happening behind the scenes. Lauren implemented the most comprehensive anti-harassment policies in the industry. She created mentorship programs specifically designed to support female agents. She refused to hire anyone, regardless of their sales numbers, who had a record of inappropriate behavior. Most significantly, she established a confidential reporting system for real estate professionals experiencing harassment, providing resources and legal referrals even to agents working for competitor firms. On the opening day of Integrity's sleek new offices, as we celebrated with champagne and catered appetizers, I noticed Lauren in deep conversation with a young woman in the corner. Later, she told me the woman was a new agent from another firm who had approached her about a situation with her manager. "I gave her Melissa's number," Lauren said, "and told her we'd have a position waiting if she needs it." I watched my wife across the crowded room, confident, purposeful, radiant, with the special energy that comes from converting pain into purpose. The trauma of Stephen's harassment had transformed into something powerful and constructive. As for Stephen, last I heard, he had moved to Arizona to work in his brother's construction company. His luxury condo was sold at auction. His name, once synonymous with high-end real estate, faded from conversation. Sometimes people ask if we're satisfied with how everything turned out, if the justice we received was worth the pain of the journey. I think about that night Lauren came home shaking, about the weeks of fear and uncertainty, about the system that almost protected the powerful at the expense of the righteous. Then I look at what she's building, not just a successful business, but a new model for how the industry can operate. Her company now has 23 agents, most of them women who left toxic environments at other firms. They've closed over $200 million in transactions in their first year, proving that ethics and profitability aren't mutually exclusive. Stephen Merrill's legacy is a cautionary tale, whispered in hushed tones at industry events. But Lauren's legacy grows with each client who chooses integrity specifically because of its values, with each agent who finds refuge there from harassment elsewhere, with each firm that reluctantly improves its policies to compete. And that's a kind of justice I never could have imagined that terrible night when she walked through our door with tears in her eyes and determination in her heart.